Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is a little bit different. It's one of our home inspector how-tos, and what we're covering today is high static water pressure. Now, what is static water pressure? It is the pressure of your supply plumbing system when no fixtures are in use, when no appliances are in use, essentially the pressure of your plumbing system at rest. And we generally want that between 40 and 80 psi. So if we're above that, we want to temper that down, bring that down to a manageable level. Today's video is going to cover how you can identify what your water pressure is and how you can adjust it if you've got a pressure reducing valve in the main water line. So join us and follow along. All right, so here we are at a hose bib on this house, and this is where we're actually going to test and find out what our static water pressure is. And we're going to do this with a simple hose pressure gauge. And you can buy this at most of your home centers in the irrigation department. And this generally runs $12 to $15. And you simply screw that on, turn your bib on slowly, and that'll tell you what your static water pressure is. Now, some of these, when you screw them on, where they end up tightening up is all the way backwards. So you can't actually see without a mirror what that is. So a lot of us home inspectors, we like to add this little kind of hose extender onto that. And it allows us to adjust that to where we can see it easily, and it makes it quite easy to pull out of your tool pouch. So once we get this tightened up here on the hose bib, we're going to make sure we can see our gauge, and we're going to slowly turn on the hose bib. Now, as you can see, that is about 95 psi right there. So that's a good bit higher than we want to have it for this plumbing system. 80 psi is the max that we want to see, but we'd like to see it closer to 60 psi. So we're going to go down to the pressure reducing valve, and we're going to make this adjustment. Okay, so now we're going to adjust the pressure reducing valve. So where is it? So in most of our homes here in Central Texas, it's going to be down at the street near the water meter. A lot of homes in the Northeast or in other areas with basements, you'll find it within your basement. But here in our area, it's typically always out here by the water meter. So for this particular home, our water meter's here near the street. This is our water meter. This is the city water meter. This is kind of how they understand how much water usage is going. There's not anything we really want to do with this. We really shouldn't be messing with that at all. The box we have adjacent to the water meter, this is where our main homeowner shutoff valve, and this is our PRV. This is the device that we're talking about today. In some houses, you'll have a small little round cover, one or two, and you've got one in there and the PRV in the other. Sometimes these aren't as accessible as this. They're buried or covered with soil, and we always write that up because, as you can see, when you need to get at these for adjustments or to turn your water off, you want to be able to get to it quickly and not have to excavate. So in order to effectively adjust this PRV, we're going to need two tools. And those are a good wrench and a flat tip screwdriver. Depending on the access you have in the box, sometimes a wrench like this may not work. You might need a smaller adjustable wrench, or you might even need a pair of pliers. Just be sure when you're adjusting the pliers, you get a good firm grip because we don't want to strip out the locking nut. Okay, so our PRV, the way this works, it has a spring-loaded diaphragm within. We have a lock nut and an adjustment screw. In order to adjust our screw, we need to loosen our lock nut. So we'll first do that with our wrench here. So we're simply going to take this. This is a 9/16. Your valve may have a different size nut, but in this case it's 9/16. We're going to loosen that. Now we can adjust and retighten our adjustment screw. Now our water pressure is high. So to lower that, we're going to want to turn the screw counterclockwise. If we had low pressure and we want to bring it up a little, we're going to adjust that screw clockwise. Now, typically, a full adjustment of the screw, a full rotation is going to adjust the PSI roughly 2 to 5 PSI. So we're at about 92. We want to come down to 60, so that's about 30 PSI. So by that measure, we're looking at about 5 full adjustments. We're going to kind of take it slow, do 3 or 4 and see where we're at. So we've loosened our lock nut, and now we're going to do full rotations. That's half 1, half 2, half 3. We'll go another half on that, 3.5 rotations. And now we're going to go back up to our pressure gauge and recheck our pressure and see where we're at. Okay, now we're back in our hose bib with our pressure gauge. Let's see what we've got the adjustment. So we're actually right at or just below 60 psi. So we're gonna go with that. That's gonna be perfect. So now that we've got that where we want it, we're gonna go back down to the pressure reducing valve and tighten that lock nut so that this pressure maintains. Back here at our valve box, and we're gonna lock down this lock nut and make sure our adjustment on the PRV stays. So we don't need to adjust that anymore. We were a little low. Let's give it just a tiny little turn to the right, just to kind of bring it right up to 60. And so we're gonna tighten this lock nut down, take our wrench and just give it a nice snug little turn right there, and that's it. This PRV has now been adjusted and locked in, so now the water pressure on this house is right where it needs to be, right at about 60 psi. Now we're fortunate here because we have a PRV in place. What do you do if you don't have a PRV? If you have an older plumbing system, older house, you may not have this device in line. Fear not, one of these can be easily installed by a qualified plumber. Now when we have one, our cost of this whole project is pretty cheap, $12 to $15 for the pressure gauge. But if you need to have one installed by a plumber, that's going to range anywhere from $300 to $600. That's money well spent though when you consider the implications of having high sustained water pressure over the long term. Appliances are going to wear out faster, you're going to have to replace those more often, and depending on the type of plumbing material you have in your house, they may be prone to leaks in the fittings and fixtures. So if your pressure's high and you don't have a PRV, call your trusted plumber and they'll get you squared away. All right, so there you have it. We've shown you how to identify if your water pressure is too high, and if it is, we've shown you how to adjust it to a manageable level with your PRV or your pressure reducing valve. And remember, if you don't have a PRV in your water line, you can simply call your local trusted plumber and they'll come out and install one for you for generally around $300 to $600, depending on your area and the job that's involved. Be sure to like and subscribe for more home inspector how-tos. We'll see you next time.